It was a private conversation.
Did Caitlyn get snubbed?
Okay, I implore once again all of my colleagues to please take a breath before these conversations, because the Caitlin Clark conversation is in the process of jumping over into the political realm, and it's going to get even grosser. I'm just letting you know. There have been someone who might end up being a vice presidential nominee, not Aaron Rodgers, was out here tweeting today, damn near demanding an investigation about why she wasn't on there.
What?
I bet Wilds, we'll see if I'm right, that there will be a Caitlin Clark-related question at a White House press conference this week, because this has become a culture war, because everything God knows must be culture war. When in reality, I think there is...
Nick literally brings up culture wars all the time, especially when talking about Aaron Rodgers. You even saw him throw in Aaron Rodgers there. So he's part of that problem. You could have talked about Aaron Rodgers during any of your other segments and not bring up any of the culture war stuff, and yet he did. So what are we talking about here?
Totally legitimate arguments, and I rarely feel this way on both sides of this. I think if you want to say she is not good enough yet, that's fair. Mm-hmm. The numbers would say she's probably not. She's not good enough yet, and it's the Olympic team, and giving her a spot takes one away from someone else. It is also totally legitimate to say we roll in the Olympics every year. We can afford having, someone who's the 20th best or 24th best instead of the 12th best because of what it would potentially do to grow the game. That's legitimate. And I also think that door somewhat got open brew by Diana Taurasi's inclusion. So Diana, and we can show you their numbers. They're having a shockingly similar season. So points and rebounds basically identical. No, field goal percentage is identical. Caitlin,
she is playing better. Caitlin Clark is playing better. Okay, she is playing better. It's that simple. Okay, yes, some of these are similar, but even something as little as assists per game, that is not similar. 5 more assists per game matters.
Has way more assists and way more turnovers to go along with it. Diana has very few assists, very few turnovers. So they're Caitlin's not yet in her prime. Diana's past her prime. Diana, I think, got in because she's Diana freaking Taurasi, right, and she's earned. She deserves it. But you then can't say we're just doing our 12 best. Right. So I think there's fair arguments on both sides. I just wish everyone didn't get so angry about it at all times when it relates to this young lady.
Snubbed is the wrong word. Because as you said, you can argue for all the other 12 players. And you're right, Taurasi, but she's a legend.
She's a legend.
Right, so we get that. All right. You can also argue for Caitlin Clark. Like, this notion that she's not playing well, of course she's not doing what she did in college. But you saw the number 16.6. She's 4th in the league in assists. She's averaging almost 17 points a game. She is on pace to become only the 5th player in history in the WNBA. History, not rookie, player, to have a 15-5-5 season. She's playing for a rookie. She's playing well. Now, she still may not be one of the 12 best players in the world. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But like you said, we've won 7 straight gold medals. Yeah. When we won the last one, we whooped Japan by like 15. Yeah. We won 55 straight games. We're going to win, no matter who that 12th or 11th man or woman in this case is. I think, though, while you can't say she was snubbed, it was a mistake to leave her off. Because to grow the game of women's pro basketball here in America. It just is what it is. And the players can, if they're angry, because a lot of them saying they aren't, whatever it is, she brings eyeballs to the sport. They're going to roll this year in the Olympics. And not many people are going to watch or care about it. If you had her on there, people would be watching and caring, and that would lift the whole league. She's already lifted the whole league to some degree. And she's not the best player ever.
To a massive degree.
It may not be fair, but it's happening. All right? And it's not her doing. And so they should have had her on there for PR reasons. Like you said, Taurasi, Christian Laettner on the freaking Dream Team. Isaiah Thomas wasn't on it. Like, we haven't always just had the best players. So I think it was a mistake PR-wise
Shaquille
not
O'Neal.
to have her on.
Let me read this quote from Christine Brennan of USA Today. Two sources, both longtime U.S. basketball veterans and with decades of experience in the women's game, told me Friday that concern about how Clark's millions of fans would react to what would likely be limited playing time on a stacked roster was a factor in the decision-making.
Yeah.
This is so absurd because, listen, now no one's going to be watching the game. At least you would have had attention watching the game. Now no one's going to watch the Olympics for women's basketball. And you know how I know this? Because no one has done it in the past. No one cares. I guarantee you the average fan out there who's now interested in Caitlin Clark and interested in WNBA had no idea how many times the Team USA has won in women's basketball. Nobody cares. This was finally you had a chance to elevate the game, to make it popular, to increase exposure, to increase money. These women have been complaining nonstop about wanting more money, more respect, more fans, more. And then you finally get the opportunity to get that, and they just throw it all away. That is absurd. That is insane. It's just mind-blowing at this point. And like they said, it's not about just getting the top 12 best players. That's not the way the Olympics works, okay? Isaiah was left off the roster. He was a top player. Like they said, like, again, Shaq wasn't on there. Hakeem wasn't on there. Like, it's just crazy. It's insane that they can't see that this was the opportunity. And they were like, oh, we're afraid of how the fans will react. You at least have fans finally. You finally have fans. You finally have people that are watching these games who are excited about Caitlin Clark. You want to know why they didn't do it? This is why they didn't do it. Now, I made a previous video talking about Caitlin Clark, and we talked about race. And a lot of people were a little confused by that because they said, oh, because I said race doesn't have anything to do with it. And people were confused with what I was saying. I'm saying her popularity, why she's so popular, has nothing to do with her race. Because there's the claim that she's only popular because she's white. And white America can support her. And I went on the whole rant about how that's insane, how fandom transcends race, how plenty of white people worship Patrick Mahomes, LeBron James, Steph Curry, all these athletes, Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, whoever it may be, right? That it has nothing to do with it. White America will support black athletes all the time. They've done it all the time historically. So just, that's nonsense. So throw that out the window. I completely wholeheartedly disagree with that. But we do have racism going in the direction where there's jealousy and there's confusion because people think that. They think she's popular just because she's white. And so now you have the other athletes who resent that, who envy that, who are angry about that. And so now you have all the powers that be that they're afraid of this. They're afraid, well, we don't want to give her anything because, you know, how would that look like, right? And then you got to like tackle this whole white privilege type of thing. Oh, did Caitlin Clark get on the roster because she was white? White privilege? If she was not, would she have, you know, probably wouldn't have been on the roster then, or she wouldn't be as popular. That's where racism is playing a factor, but not in her popularity. It's in the people trying to pull her down. That's where it's coming from, because they think that she has an easier path and a more popular path and a more privileged path because she's white, which is just nonsense. Just nonsense. They're dropping the ball massively. My mom can't name a single women's basketball player in the WNBA, let alone Team USA. She doesn't know any of these players. Better believe she knows who Caitlin Clark is. Those are the people who you're trying to bring in. Who do you think the fans are? The fans are the moms and the dads of the world, the elderly people, the young kids, the super young kids, the high school kids, the guy who's like, yeah, I'll watch Caitlin Clark play. I mean, I don't really watch WNBA, but oh, Caitlin Clark, I heard she's really fun to watch. I'll watch her. That's how this all happens. It's a snowball. That's why Steph Curry brought in new fans. That's why, you know, even Jeremy Lin brought in new fans. I'll never forget my roommate at the time. He's Asian. He was Vietnamese. And he randomly was like, yo, what time do the Knicks play tonight? And I was like, bro, I've known you for a while. I've never seen you ever watch a sports game of any sport. Now you're asking about the Knicks? Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, gotta watch Jeremy Lin. That's how it happens. That's how it works. That's how things grow. And then you have people want to call it out. So those are just casuals. I don't know who needs to hear this, but majority of the fans are casual. Not everyone is a diehard fan that knows every single player, every single team, and watches every single game. It's the casuals that make the world go round. It's the casuals that get the players paid hundreds of millions of dollars. That's how it works. That's what turns us into a $1 trillion industry. And they just ruined it. I'm not going to watch WNBA. I'm not going to watch any of these games unless Caitlin Clark is playing because I don't care. Caitlin Clark is why I watched the NCAA women's tournament, because of her. And anyone who's actually smart and intelligent knows that. Even the coaches of the opposing teams admitted it was all Caitlin Clark. They didn't say, well, it was also Angel Reese. Well, it was also insert other names. They all said it was solely. Staley said this. The coach of Angel Reese's head coach. They all said Caitlin Clark is the sole reason why popularity has exploded. It's not that hard to admit. It's okay. You know what? When Nick wants to say, take a deep breath, what he needs to say is, take a deep breath. It's okay for us to praise a white person in media now, nationally, publicly, internationally. We're allowed to talk up a white American because in this day and age, it's like you're not allowed to do that. It's like awful. If we celebrate a white person, publicly, it's just like, well, we have to talk about their privilege. We talk about how easy it is. Well, what about the other races? I don't care about that right now. That's not the situation. She is a dominant, incredibly popular athlete. And you know what? If she was black, she would be just as popular. How do I know this? Because Patrick Mahomes is not struggling for fame. LeBron James is not struggling for fame. Ant is not struggling for fame. None of these black athletes are struggling for fame. Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams hasn't even played a snap in the NFL, and yet he's already like a top 5 famous quarterback in the NFL. So this idea that we want to put race everywhere is absurd to me. And that is why we're now unable to truly universally celebrate Caitlin Clark. And you have a lot of non-white people, wherever the races may fall along on those spectrums or their backgrounds, they don't want to celebrate Caitlin Clark. And it's this whole backwards way of thinking where we can't support Caitlin because it takes away support. You can support an Angel Reese and a Caitlin Clark. You don't have to pick and choose here. Like it doesn't really matter. I could be a Luka fan and also a LeBron fan. I don't have to pick a race. So it's just so backwards to me. It really, really is. And I used this example previously, like majority of casual fans were rooting for Ant over Luka, over Jokic. They were doing that. Plenty of white people, plenty of black people, Asian, men, women, boys, girls, whatever. So it's just such an absurd, backwards way of looking at things. And because of it, they're now literally ruining the development of this league. This league is on a trajectory of becoming more and more popular. I've watched a ton of First Things First, The Herd, any of the sports shows, First Take, whatever it may be. Nobody was talking about women's basketball. Nobody was talking about NCAA women's basketball. Nobody was talking about WNBA basketball. Nobody. They were not making videos on this. Now they're making videos like at least once a week, every 2 weeks about Caitlin Clark, NCAA finals, WNBA, Team USA. No one would even be talking about the roster for the Team USA women's basketball. Nobody. Certainly not these guys. The only reason why we're talking about is because of Caitlin Clark. You have to ride that wave. You have to ride that. And it's just so dumb not to. It's just absurd to me. It really, really is. And it's a shame because we talk about how we want to live in a more like equal society, a more fair society, a more just society, a more accepting society. And I'm all for that, right? I want to live in a world where everyone's all happy and healthy and free. All about that. Let's do it. But only when it conveniently fits a narrative that we want to put in our mind. It's just so backwards. And it's a shame. And we honestly saw Nick Wright kind of just do it right there. Which is funny because he says, I usually don't have arguments for both sides, which is insane because that just kind of shows bias in itself, quite honestly, because nothing is ever that extreme one side or the other. So he kind of just, told on himself there, which is pretty funny. But when he said everybody wants to make everything political, but then he can't see that he contributes to that. He doesn't see that he contributes to those types of discussions. And I to be clear, I think he's actually pretty good in that regard, and he's pretty fearless in that regard, even if I don't believe everything he says, because he's addressed some of these things, whether it be, race, religion, politics, which I can appreciate that he has the courage to go there and the willingness to go there. So I do wholeheartedly respect that. And I'm sure he said plenty of things that I totally agree with. And I'm sure he said things that I disagree with. I really don't remember. I don't go to Nick Wright for my political views. But for him to call that out and say that people need to take a deep breath, I mean, he hasn't been able to talk about Aaron Rodgers once in the last 3 months without him talking about political things, about what he says on a podcast, about him being he referred to him as the vice president candidate. He can't help himself in that regard. And then he wants to call out other people. It's just that's where all of this discussion gets so degraded. We want to say it's not about race, but then we want to bring up race. We say we want to live in an equal society, but only when we can bring up certain groups, bring down other groups, focus on this. We say we want to grow women's basketball, but then the very thing that will grow women's basketball, we actively swat down. We have famous world-renowned coaches say Caitlin Clark's fans are stupid, dumb, disrespectful. What? We have new fans going into the WNBA, and let's now tell them that they're all stupid and dumb and racist for liking Caitlin Clark. It's just mind-blowing to me how backwards we do everything. And we can't help ourselves. That's why I started this channel. It's a huge reason why. So we can have real, honest conversations, no matter what the topic is. We can look at things from both sides of the argument, left, right, up, down, wherever. We can talk about why this is like this, why this is like that, and then explore it without it having to be such an extreme, ready for eruption. Because that's where these conversations just derail, is because people get so heated because they have such a strict, strong viewpoint. But if we can't agree that Caitlin Clark is good for women's basketball and has elevated it tremendously, if we can't just agree to that basic, simple truth, then there's no conversation to be had. Because we're not actually living in reality. We're not actually living in the same world in that moment. If you can't admit that, then you can't admit life. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours on this one. Definitely, please do. Let me know what you have to say. Do you think Caitlin Clark was snubbed? Do you think Caitlin Clark should have made it? Do you think she should have made it just because of her fame and fandom and growing the sport? Do you think she should have made it because she's good enough? Or do you think that she should not have made it because she's not good enough? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.